Today I want to show you how to do a verification check on the Accufit9000 using the software. So I've already put the alcohol cartridge into the machine. I had made sure I had enough alcohol in here, soaked it, and I just kind of dabbed it off to make sure there was not a lot of alcohol on the end of it before putting it in. Put that into place. The machine itself is in the start, like the first menu, so fit test, validation check. I don't have to touch any of that. I've got the USB cable connected. And so I've got my tubing hooked up and everything here. So let's focus on the software now. And I'll make this full screen, move this out of the way a little bit. So first thing I want to check is the database I'm working out of. So if I go to administration, I can see that I'm working out of 11 Safety 2023. I could make another database. I could name a new database here, whatever it would be, load it. Like, so I'd name it, then load it. The main thing is whatever database you're using. I think the default is actually called default when you get the unit. You could run under that if you wanted to, but you could create multiple databases if you wanted to. So I could see I'm working at 11 Safety 2023 here. I could add people, like new people that I'm going to fit test, or respirators and other things in here. Well, those are the main things I'm working with right now. The validation check. So this is a daily check just to make sure the machine's working. This first check is to make sure it's communicating, and I could see the serial number come up. If I had 3 or 4 Accufits connected, each one would show here their serial number. And actually on the machine itself, it says now connected to PC on the top here. I could go in and check these parameters from the factory. This is usually set to 2000. You could set it as low as 1000. We recommend, especially if you're testing SCBA, SCBA, basically the air has to be 1,000 times cleaner. So you need to have a half decent amount of particles around outside as compared to inside the mask to do the math for SCBA. So 2000 is a good number. When you get into things like half face respirators, the pass mark's 100. You could potentially lower this to 1500. This is basically the minimum particle count that's required in the room to fit test the particles that are. So you're either have natural particles existing or you have the particle generator you're running. Some customers run it with just tap water, and that's fine. There's enough particles in there. If it's a really challenging location, you could put a little bit of salt in the water. You just don't want to overdo it. You only need, say, 2,000 to 8,000 particles. Even if you were over 2,000 and maybe even running in the ballpark 5,000 particles, you've got more than enough. You don't want 10,000, 20,000 for a long time. Anyway, this is set to 30. This also, you could lower this if this was set to 25,000. You could lower this. This is just the max fix fit factor check. And anyway, if it's set to 25,000, you could leave it there, but it could be set as low as 10,000, and you just hit the save if you made any changes here. But that's under parameter settings. So let's start this. And actually what it says here is remove the HEPA filter. I do have the HEPA filter removed. Now it's going to check how many particles we have. This is the real-time reading it's getting in the room of the particles. Now, if I was, so I had it set to 2000, if I'm over 2000 now, so I'm fine, but didn't have enough, I would have to generate a particle somehow, either with the particle generator or some other method. May even be just opening the window if you have the ability to do that. So now it says to connect the zero filter, and it says it on the screen and on the Accufit. So I'm connecting up the HEPA filter. Your filter might look slightly different than the one I have hooked up, but it's basically a HEPA filter that we need to connect. Now what this is going to check on the clear tube, so we're connected to the longer tube, it's going to check to make sure we have a good zero. So we have enough particles in the air to fit test. Now is everything connected correctly that this clear tube is connected to the mask in the future? And this is kind of simulating that or checking to make sure that everything's correct and that we should measure basically zero particles or very close to it during the zero check. Okay, so we did get zero. Now it's just doing some checks, the maximum fit factor check. So this is another 38 seconds just to go through. Now I say this verification check, maybe, the alcohol, over time, it does get weaker. It does absorb alcohol, or sorry, moisture. it may not work as well. So this is a check that you do at the first of the day before people come in to get fit tests to make sure everything's working correctly. And yeah, it's just you never know. Usually, like if I have a failure here, I may have to increase the particles. I've found leaks in the tubing over time, or maybe the end of the tubing here gets a little bit stretched, and there's air leaking in around. So it's better to find this out now than actually during the fit test itself. So I've got a pass here. Everything looks good, and I'm basically ready now that I could feel pretty confident that I can go and start doing fit tests from here. So I would exit out of this, and now I can go into the fit test. And I'll do another video on that, on how to go from here, basically.